Hi everyone, hope you're all keeping well. Hopefully we should get a bit of pleasure fishing soon by the look of it. We'll wait until we actually hear to confirm that, but it is looking like we are going to be allowed to do a bit of pleasuring soon, hopefully. I'm still writing matches off for a while. I think it's for the best, but we'll take that as it comes. I just want to say a massive thanks to everyone that's been subscribing and watching the videos. It's gone mad the last few weeks. Everyone's got a bit of time on their hands obviously, but it's much appreciated, thank you very much. And on to today's video. I've been asked by someone to do one about meat fishing, which anyone that knows me is something I love doing. If I could fish meat and casters all year round, I'd be a very, very happy man. Something I've been really successful with over the years. There's it's quite simple rigs wise, but the key with it is feeding really, because it's such a light bait. So we'll go into that when we get to that stage of the video. As always, we'll start with why we'd fish meat, when and why. You could catch on meat in the winter. It's not something I do, but I know some places they do it when it's cold, and they still can catch a few, being really frugal. But it's not on the venues I fish, so I'm not going to cover that. The main times meat would come into its own is as soon as fish have woke up a little bit from the winter, and then the other end of the year when they're starting to stock up on food ready for the winter. Meat is amazing bait. It's just full of protein and the fish just gorge themselves on it. They love it. Like I say, after a cold winter they start filling themselves up, and they fill themselves up before winter as well. Does work all year round, depends what venues you're on. Some venues it'll go all year, some it has little spells, like I say, late spring and in the autumn, and it all just depends. Some venues that meat has been brilliant at in a previous year, it just won't work for some reason in the middle of summer. It's like most baits, it goes in swings and roundabouts. But when they are having it, I don't think you can beat it. It's awesome bait. A lot of people will just think of it as a carp bait, but it's also a brilliant F1 bait. Again, more in cycles with that. And for skimmers, I love fishing meat for skimmers. I've got so many skimmers on it. Anything really. You catch roach, you do catch a bit of everything on it. It's not how I was always taught when I was younger. Meat was for massive fish. It's not, everything eats it because it's quite soft. So yeah, you can use it all year round, and to be honest, on a venue where it's allowed, I would always feed meat somewhere, and generally on the short line. Most of today is going to be about fishing the out the hand, the 5 metre line. It's at the bottom of the slope, to be honest, but everyone classes it as the 5 metre line. I will talk about fishing it in shallower water as well. So yeah, I would, like I say, it's something I always use. I'm really confident in it for all sorts of fishing. So we'll cover a bit more as we go along. As always, next up we'll cover some rigs. To be honest, you'll probably recognise this rig. It's what I use for hard pellets as well. I'm going to cover first fishing for proper carp. Elastic wise, my favourite carp elastic, the 16 to 18 slick, the green, for a power kit. 020 to 018. Couple of number 8 back shot again, because I want to be using a light float. Meat, even more than hard pellets, works well with a light float because it sinks really slowly and you're trying to mimic it. And you'll sometimes find you fish a bigger float, you won't get many bites. You put a light rig on and you'd be amazed how many big carp are in your swim sat watching it come down. Float, again, to replicate that is a Rube Carbon. As always, 2mm tip, nice strong float. It's the carbon stem that's the key though, because you can hold your rig against your back shot really slow. You're just slowing down that fall as much as you can, mimicking the meat. This is a 4x12. As with hard pellets, that is my go-to size. On those really hot still days, don't be afraid to even use a 4x10. You'd be amazed, like I say, the lighter the float, the more bites you do get with it. This is just shot with strong number 11s all the way down, down to a 6-inch hook length and of 018 and a decent wire size 16. I use a 16 for fishing single meat, and I step up to a 14 for fishing either 2 bits of 6mm or an 8mm. Again, I'll touch on that in a bit, why I would use either one. With meat being so light, I would always recommend setting up a second rig with a slightly heavier float, a 414, and I'd have that with a bulk and 2 droppers. What you find is if you get any tow on the water, because it's such a light bait, it will ride up off the bottom, so you want something with a bit more shot down to help keep your bait down if there is a bit of a tow or if the wind gets up, because you've just got no control over it because it's so light it'll be riding up off bottom, and you start foul hooking fish and it's a bit of a nightmare. So that is the rig. Like I say, elastic and hook length choices do change a bit depending on what I'm fishing for. That is solely for carp. There's venues of fish, say Tunnel Barn or any F1 water. Tunnels is one of the ones I fish, where meat can be really good in spring and autumn for the F1s. I just use my standard 10 to 12 slick through a short kit with it. Float and everything would be the same, but I would just use, it'd be a 125 bottom, just a lighter bottom. Not too heavy a hook. Again, with that one, I know it's strong. You want a strong hook. It's not going to straighten or anything, but nothing too heavy because you're making your bait sink faster, which is everything you're trying to avoid with that rig. I will say with F1s, I do find a bulk and a couple of droppers better. You just seem to hook more bites. You're getting it down to them. If they're coming off bottom, you want to be fishing other, but you're into maggot and caster territory then. The other setup I would have with it is sort of mixed venues. I've had some good catches at Makins, like the commercial channels, venues to go with that. Makins, Big Gearys at Packington, even Barston, where I've caught really well with lots of skimmers on me and then some carp thrown in with it. I'd fish like an 014 5 bottom, and I'd actually use, it's the elastic I don't use very often, the 12 to 14 slick through a long kit. So it's as stretchy as a 10 to 12 in a short kit, but you've just got that bit more elastic should you hook a big carp, which those sort of venues, there's some really big fish. You're giving yourself a chance of landing them. The other rig I will touch on, because we're going to bring this in as well, is for fishing like double 8mm meat and cat meat. I will have to cover cat meat, it is meat at the end of the day. I know some people love it, some people hate it. This is my cat meat rig, and I would also use it for when there's a lot of fish in my swim on meat late on. This rig can be the one. Stepped up again, this is the red slick, the 18 to 20, 023 mainline power micron. So no messing around this rig. The float is a Rube cane. This is a wire stem, 2.2mm cane bristle. Leave all that showing. When there's a lot of fish in your swim, big fish, especially big fish late on, you're going to be able to read it, not have so many liners. Shotting wise, this is a bit different. It's a bit crude to be honest, but I've found it to be the best. All the bulk of the shot above the hook length loop. And with this I have a foot hook length of 020 down to a big strong wide gape size 12 hook. Hiles is a bit of cat meat or double 8mm or so. It's just a standout bait, really bagging rig, but it certainly caught me some fish over the years. On to the most important part, where to fish in the swim. Obviously we're covering 5 metres, but I will do some other bits. They call it the 5 metre line. That line could be anywhere. It's the bottom of the shelf is what you're looking for. You want to plumb up, find the bottom of the shelf is there. You want to just come back a bit so you're not in the silt. Just come back onto a harder bottom. If that's a top kit away from you, don't be afraid to fish that line, but out out your peg, like fish 6 metres where you can fish a pole where you can throw a top 5 or 6. So you're fishing away from your sill, so they're comfortable coming there, but you're on that right depth of water. That's really important. Don't fish in the sill. You want to be just up the slope, otherwise you'll have foul hookers and clouding and fizzing. A bit of a nightmare, to be honest. So just onto the slope. It's far, far better. Right, onto the main bit is the feeding and bait. This is what meat is all about. I've chopped up a tin here just so we can go through a few different options. See that? That's just the tin done at 6 mils. I use one of the leader ones. It's similar to the same as the map. Everyone has different ones they like. Something I will touch on with it. You can see here, this is the plunge I push through. I've cut a couple of these out, and on the wires, I've cut a few of the wires out. I broke a couple of the wires out. Don't do too many because it all falls apart. I've made that mistake before. I had to order some more. But you want some irregular. It's not like pellets where you want everything. Good pellets are the ones that are all the same size. You want a few different sizes of meat. Just trying to pick them out here. Look, there's your standard, your 6 mils, if you can see them. And there's a irregular sort of size bit. They are the best bits for hook bait. They just stand out that bit more. I do find with meat that feeding a lot of bait, being positive with it is the best way, which is probably why I like it, because I love hoofing baiting. So you do want that little bit of standout. And again, if I'm fishing 6 mils, there's some little fish, that's just a bit bigger hook bait to avoid them. And I do the same with 8 mil. I use 2 sizes, 6 or 8. I haven't actually got any here, but the other bait I always use with meat is hemp. Lots of hemp can work really well. It's just because this is so light, it's a nice heavy bait, complements it. You can lay a bed of hemp down, fish that over the top. The only other bait really with it is, for in the deeper water, is corn. Carrying some corn, I'll touch on that in a minute. So yeah, how do I prepare my meat? Like I say, I put it through a meat cutter. I do 3 tins at a time. You'll see why in a minute. I'll just pretend it. 3 tins at a time. And what I actually use is the spotted fin, the Catalyst pellet, particle and pellet syrup. I tip a bit of that on the meat, just a little bit. Obviously for 3 tins you'd want a bit more. Stir it all in, give it a good coating. It's that nice brown colour, a bit of a flavour to it. I do 3 tins at a time, put it in a freezer bag, do this the night before and put it in the fridge. In the freezer, sorry. Let it freeze. When it freezes, it's drawing all that in, and it just helps make it that bit heavier. Some people wash it in warm water to take the fat off. I don't want to do that. I like the fat on it. That's one of the attractive qualities, all the fat it releases. But by doing this, I'm adding some extra flavour to it, some attractants, and it just makes it that bit denser, so it just sinks that bit quicker to try and avoid liners. It can be a nightmare where some bits don't float. So I'll be back in 1 sec. I'm just washing my hands. That's the way I do it. I know everyone has their own little ways, but for me that's the way I like doing it. Right, so on to a typical, so now I do it like I say, I do it in 3 pints, 3 tins, bag them up, and I might take 2 or 3 bags for me, and I can just open one, fills the bait box up. If I need any more, it's behind me in my core bag. It, like I say, can be a bait, if bait limits aren't there, can be, it seems to respond, unlike if I was fishing pellets at 6 metres or 5 metres, it gets worse as the day goes on. The more bait you put in, as you build it up, the better that peg is going to get, especially later on. That's why it's known for it later on. So how would we start the match or pleasure session? If I'm going to feed a meat line, it is where I'm going to start the match. Always. There's just fish milling around in that sort of area where they've had bait thrown in the night before or the day before. They used to be in that edge, but as you're setting up, they just push out that little bit. And they're just waiting there. That's where they're going to be, and then after you catch a couple, they're going to move out. So I don't want to be putting lots of bait in straight away, because I want to try and get a couple of those early mugfish quickly. So it would just be a palm full of hemp and not a lot of bait. 20 bits of meat, that would go in on me, would be starting line, and I would go straight in on it, and you'd be amazed how many times you'll catch a couple of carp early on it before the lake sort of goes into the first hour or two of the match stage, where the fish back off a little bit from everyone, and then you're trying to draw them back in. So it can be a great start. You can have a nice little early lead on people. You'll often find it's a big fish as well, the wise ones. They know what's happening, they've been in the lake a while, they know they're going to get a bit of food there. So that would be my starting ploy. After that, once I'm not getting bites there, I'll fish that for as long as I can. I wouldn't even feed anywhere else in my swim at this stage. I want all the fish to be focusing there. As soon as I have to move out, be it on a feed, long pole and pellet, hard pellets like I was saying about before, slapping and stuff, then I would get the big cup out. I haven't got any hemp here, so I can't demonstrate, but I would fill half a cup of big hemp. There'd be a lot of hemp in there. A good handful of meat, put that in, leave it. And all I would do is keep throwing, again double feeding like we do with maggots and stuff, so it makes a bit more noise. Just 10 bits, double feeding, quite regularly. You're trying to build it up, get a column of bait falling through the water. Other fish will eat it, so they're going to do it. Every half hour or so, I'd just have a quick 5 minutes on that line. You might find for 2 hours you don't really catch anything, and you'll try it again, and it'll be like a light switch, and there'll be loads of fish there. Once the fish are there, feeding is, as with all fishing, is the key, but with meat especially, there's a few variations to it. You're going to have to change things about a little bit. Because it's so light, even though I prepared it like that, it is a light bait. And where it's falling through what, you might start to foul up fish. You've got to think about what you're doing then. Changing to a toss pot can be really good. A lot of hemp in there, just a bit of meat, just enough to keep draw the next fish there. Another way around it is not feeding when your float's in the water. Feed, as soon as you hook a fish, double feed. Play the fish if it's a big fish, you've had it a while. Double feed again, then bait up. Go out. You're holding your rig through. You're trying to get it so your rig's not in the water and your bait's falling past it. You want that loose feed to be on the bottom and then go in. Otherwise you are going to have some foul looking issues. Another way of doing it, if you're getting it, just cut out a bit of meat, just a little bit of meat, a full pot full of corn, just dump that in. It's so heavy it just draws the fish back down to the bottom. That can work. Again, another way of doing it is land your fish, then fill your big cup with some meat, some hemp, go out, tip it in, come back in, then rebait and do it. And by the time you've brought that in, rebaited, pick your other rig up, rebaited, you can go out and that bait's on the bottom. There's a few different ways of doing it. That is, let's say you've got to work it out on the day. Let's say don't be afraid to feed some bait with it though. It is a really positive method generally. Right, back to this, the cat meat and the double 8mm meat. Again, when there's a lot of fish in the present and you're dumping bait in to try and keep them down, this can be really good that last hour. That's why I set it up on the heavy gear. It's often really big fish, and it's worse than you're not holding it. You're simply going, baiting up, double meat, even double cat meat, a really big bait to stand out in the peg, going and dumping that down, dropping it straight in, and big bristle waiting for a proper go under, and there can be some really big fish. This can also work, something I will touch on with cat meat. When we used to fish decoy all the time, this was my starting rig on a top kit, on that bottom of that shelf, and I'd simply start the match again before I fed anything else. Cut literally two bits of cat meat, half a dozen 6mm pellets on a top kit by your nets. Drop in with a cat meat, and the amount of times you'd catch like a 10-pounder or a couple of 10-pounders in that first 5 minutes was crazy. If you didn't do it, you knew it was going to be a hard day. I'd give it 10 minutes if you didn't catch on it, or even worse, if you're on the strips at decoy and you sat on it for 10 minutes and then it went under and you'd catch a massive, one of the 4 or 5 pound eyed. You knew you were in for a bad day because it just meant the carp weren't feeding. But yeah, that is a rig I would always set up now. Another rig that can be worthwhile setting up is a shallow rig, even though it's short, like you wouldn't catch on it really on pellets. Just slapping a bit of 8mm meat with a speed stop. I'd fish it with a hair rig and a speed stop so you can slap it. Just slapping that over your short line can work really well sometimes when you just can't keep them down. I've had a couple of matches I've fished in the past where sort of gone from not catching a huge amount, really hot days, that last hour I've caught £100 shallow. Like on a top 5, it's really quick fishing when they do rock up on it. So it's another rigger to set up. It'd simply be the MTD dibber, along with, again, like with the pellets, a long line, so you're slapping it around your feed. I'd only set the one up, just a dibber with a 3 foot above it. You can deepen that down a little bit to 2, so you've got 2 foot and 2 foot. Again, wouldn't always say, it depends on the venue, but if it's one of the bigger weight venues, that can be really, really good. Right, now touching on fishing in shallower water, snake lakes, like down the edges with me can be really good. Feeding changes very, very slow. The way we feed the meat can change a little bit. There's 2 ways of doing it. For fishing in sort of 2.5, 3.5 foot against reeds across or a deeper edge, what I would do is, sorry if you hear the dog barking, I've had to lock him out the way. He likes meat as much as the fish do. Simply get your meat you've cut, put it back in your cutter. If you can see that, I don't know if you can on the camera. My knees are very short down. Put it back in the cutter and just repeat the process with it. Sorry, be with you in a minute, guys. And what that produces, I'll show you now, is like double cut meat. There's lots of little pieces. It's not really tiny pieces, it's just smaller pieces. In the sort of 2.5 to 3.5 foot. That and some hemp and a few cubes of normal kindering in across on a snake lake. Can be really good. I remember a match on club in a tunnel in a fish show qualifier. Fish like that all day was sadly gives me nightmares. Second by 10 ounce. I done over £100. That was when it was quite cold, but it was just when it was into spring when they started feeding. Like I say, they were sat across by some reeds, and that was the way. And what you'll find with that is when you're not getting bites, you want to be feeding the double cut meat, because it sinks even slower. Cloudy helps draw them in, and as you're getting more fish out, reading it, swapping to feeding a bit more of the proper 6mm cubed meat and some hemp to keep them down. As bites dry up, feeding a bit more of that. It's all about changing about during the day. Now for fishing in even shallower water, like the mud line or down your edge, I know one of my local venues I catch really well with ground bait and meat down the edge. Now the way we feed that, again, the prep for it is slightly different. You're getting your riddle, particularly cubes on that. It is worth having a pair of gloves. I've not got any eggs. You might catch your hands on your riddle, but just pushing it all through your riddle. And this is going to make a really, really fine, like a mush. Even worth putting it through the riddle a couple of times. But then that's tiny little particles then. And I'd mix that with ground bait. You want to mix your ground bait first. Very dry though. You only want a bit of water in it because it's going to get some liquid in off that as well. The perfect complement for me for doing this is the Krill Super Blend Spotted Fin. Krill's, it's got a lovely reddy colour which matches the meat, and it's like meat. Krill is something they're looking for when they want some protein. It's full of it. It's what they eat. It's what they like to eat. It's a great ground bait for down the edge and stuff as well. Just mix a bit of that in with it. Like I say, it won't be wet, but you'll still get the idea. And then what you've got is this lovely bright red, very meaty. Like here, it smells, well, if I was a fish it'd smell lovely, I'm sure. It's very pungent. You see it's all coated in it. Feeding that down the edge, fishing, well, you catch it, F1s like it, fishing your 6mm, but a double 8mm cube on a proper edge rig would be the one with that. Really successful with it. I've had a lot of good, especially this lake near me, Floatfish Farm. The evening match they've done there, well, I won nearly every one last year. And I caught loads of fish fishing like this and fishing double 8mm meat over the top. If you fish smaller, you caught roach and rudd, like I say, they do take it. And the maggots and ground bait, you just got roach and rudded out. But double 8mm meat over some of this was brilliant. I think that about covers it all, to be honest. Like I say, it's the actual rigs for it are really simple, and the feeding is quite aggressive, but you've just got to, because it's such a light bait, the key point is thinking about getting your bait to the bottom, your feed, without it getting in the way of your rig and causing liners, because they will look up at it because it's sinking slow, it draws them up. You don't want to be doing that, you want to be holding them on the bottom. So think about how you're feeding. Positive tackle, carry a bit of meat with you. You always want to make sure you've got more than enough, because they do really respond to it. It's one of those baits where if you are struggling, you can pile it in some meat and all of a sudden they do rock up, because it's releasing all the fat and everything. It's one of those baits, you can feed a lot of it and then all of a sudden it will draw them in sometimes. If you're going nowhere, it can be worth just putting a big pot of meat in, and you can go from 0 to hero. Let's say, any other baits I'd fish with it? Not really, I don't fish pellets with it particularly. There are some venues where you're fishing for more skimmers, feeding a big pot of casters with it can work. Again, I don't really fish those venues. So it's not, I'm just going on the sort of fishing I do. The other bait that can work really well with it, I know it sounds a bit strange, when you're fishing down deep edges or in edges, feeding your hemp and meat, double Dendrobina worm. It sounds, because it's completely opposite from meat, but it can be a standout bait. I remember a match at Decoy years ago when you allowed me to do an MPEG on one of the strips, feeding meat and hemp down the edge, not really catching, started getting a few liners, but just not proper bites, even with a big hook bait, 2 worms, and I was catching big fish every put in, framed in the end from nowhere. But I tried putting meat back on the hook and it didn't work, so it is worth carrying a few worms, and most of us carry some in the summer anyway. And other than that, I think that is it. If there's anything I've missed, as always, just drop me a message. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll try and get the next one done soon for you. Thanks very much.